Hey, my pleasure, guys. Take care.
All right, Russ. Talk to you soon. Thank you. Russ Bliss, of course, How to Win at Fantasy Football is his book on Amazon.com. He's been doing this for decades and decades.
I've read it and I still haven't won. It's not his fault.
No, but I'll tell you, this guy, there's nobody that knows fantasy football better or more. I mean, you can drop anything on him and he just pops up with the statistics. You know, he's just got it at his fingertips. It's amazing to me. But what I thought he said really well and very succinctly is the Legion of Boom exists. They're there. It's back. And don't take them for granted. There's nobody that covers wide receivers better than the Seahawks defense.
Yeah. No doubt about it. No, I think that the problem has really been the Seahawks offense and specifically their passing offense, which we expected wouldn't be dominant, but would be better with Jimmy Graham in there. Yeah. So that's what's really been lacking is that that two-dimensional offense for Seattle. They've been very one-dimensional so far. The Cardinals have been much better in that regard.
Going along with that, I'll say that if the Cardinals finish with more passes than rushes this week, they lose. I think that they have to lean on that ground game. They have to have success from Johnson, Ellington, and David Johnson. I mean, it is going to be a battle on the ground between Seattle and the Cardinals.
The nice thing is the Cardinals can give the Seahawks different looks because Chris Johnson, Andre Ellington, and David Johnson, they're all different. Yeah. The other thing is, too, how will the Seahawks account, no matter how good a defense you have, how can the Seahawks account for all the weapons the Cardinals have? Not only any running back who can make a catch out of the backfield, all three of them can, but the number of wide receivers. We saw what J.J. Nelson can do the other week as well. You have him on the field at the same time as John Brown, Michael Floyd, Larry Fitzgerald, and you throw in Darren Fells is supposed to be back as well. Obviously not all those guys are going to be on the field at the same time, but how do you count for any 4 or 5 of those guys on the field at the same time?
It was funny what Arian said after that Cleveland game about JJ, because JJ had those 2 big catches, and he said, after those 2 big catches, he forgot where he was and forgot the offense couldn't line up. So we pulled him off the field. Because the question was, guys, you got 2 big pass receptions for you, but then he forgot what he was.
Even if you just throw him out there and you have to account for his speed, that takes a focus off any number of other guys.
Yeah. You know what I think is going to be the sleeper in this whole thing Sunday night is the weather. I watched last week, and you see Eugene, Oregon. I watched the Oregon Ducks play Saturday night. You watch the Huskies play, and it's like it's raining, it's cold, and so I don't know what the forecast is in Seattle for Sunday.
Let's look it up right now.
There you go. You got the computer. But you know what? That to me could be a sleeper because the Cardinals don't like cold and rain, and that could be the factor that we're not looking at. Is it Larry? Is it Carson? Is it Chris Johnson? Is it the Legion of Boom? Yeah. I think it might be the weather.
Why would they not like cold and rainy weather in the desert?
Why would they not?
But what's funny is, though, the style of the game may not change that much. Like I said, if it's going to be a ground game and it's raining.
Yeah. What's it look like now?
Well, we're looking like, as of now, and it's always subject to change, but...
those meteorologists always get it right.
They do. Ours do. 40s. And a 40% chance of showers. And showers usually means less than rain. So I know the Pacific Northwest, just coming back from Vancouver last week, it's kind of a lot of times like a light mist. So it's really not that bad.
But look at Saturday is 80% chance and Monday is 60%. So sandwiched in between Saturday and Monday is 40%.
There's always a margin of error.
Right.
So we'll see.
That to me is always a fact. Look at that Pittsburgh game when the Cardinals went up to Pittsburgh. It's kind of drizzly. It was kind of chilly. It was like they just haven't done well in cold or wet weather.
Yeah.
Whether it's snow, rain, or just cold.
And on top of that, no team historically has played well at CenturyLink Field. It's
one of those.
You combine both of those, home field advantage and weather. Gosh, how many tallies can you put in the pro column for the Seahawks?
Right.
There's no doubt that most national experts are going to pick the Seahawks to win this game.
Yeah, I think they're a 3-point favorite right now.
Yeah, well, I'm just guessing.
3-point favorite every week.
So that's the home field advantage. So 3 points is typical. So.
I'm just guessing. It's hard to go against them right now, but when you consider the weather and the fact that they're going to be at home and the way their defense is playing right now, it's kind of was it a famous wrestler said to be the man, you got to beat the man?
Yeah,
that's right.
And
that's true.
The Cardinals haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
They didn't. They're 0-2 against them last year. Of course, this year they have Carson Palmer back, but still, you got to go out and prove it.
So we're going to Seattle right now. I've got this son up there who's an attorney up there, John Fooey, who happens to be a huge Seahawks fan. I'm covering the Cardinals, rooting for the Cards, and he's up there in Seattle cheering on his Seahawks.
Sounds like a conflict of interest to me.
It's a conflict of interest. And John, we just talked about the weather. To me, that's going to be the surprise factor Sunday night. What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm sitting here right now. We've got gray skies and rain is dumping, and I think it's projected to continue most of the week. And so it's definitely, seems like it'll be a factor for the Cardinals coming from that sun and warmer weather.
Now, John, I'm going to tell you, we're going to do our best to make this a heated father-son debate right now. Who do you, what do you think it's going to come down to on Sunday night?
Boy, it's a great question. I think I see first half of the season here for the Seahawks has been a struggling offensive line. Obviously, the Cardinals defense has been solid this year, catching up to the Legion of Boom and the rest of the Seahawks defense, and I think that could be a major factor, the weaknesses on the Seahawks offensive line, both in the rushing game. Obviously, the Seahawks are succeeding in the rushing game still, but noticeably weaker offensive line than the past couple of years, and especially in the pass game. I think that's really hindered Russell Wilson and his ability to get the ball out of his hands just without the time and giving up the most sacks in the NFL this season.
John, from the Seattle perspective, you get the outsider perspective. From a national perspective, and even in Seattle, is the perception that the Cardinals really haven't beaten anyone this year, and they still have a lot to prove, even though they're 6-2?
I wouldn't say that. I haven't heard that too much. Obviously, leading the NFC West, they're well thought of. I think, frankly, the Seahawks are seen a little bit that way. I think you look at the wins that they have, and they've been against weak and backup quarterbacks. So I think maybe you can say that about the Cardinals. I don't think that's been talked about much here, but definitely can say the same about the Seahawks if you're going to make that argument for the Cardinals.
I will say this, that CenturyLink Field is a very tough place to play, and it's incredibly loud. So that's that home field advantage. And Jason just mentioned, it's sort of the Seahawks are 3-point favorites right now, and probably because of CenturyLink.
Yeah, absolutely. That place gets crazy. The Pacific Northwest has a reputation of being a kind of laid-back, nice community, but boy, you get the fans out there and filling those stadiums for pretty much any of the professional sports up here, and it gets loud and it gets crazy and it's hard to hear. So I think that definitely has to be a factor on Sunday night.
John, we have family divided. I mean, how much trash talk has gone on over the years between you, the Hawks fan, and Fui here, Mr. Cardinals?
Oh, it's unending. It's unending. It's always, I'm up for games, and it's, what's going on this week. And, thankfully for me, the last couple of years have been good for the Seahawks, making a couple Super Bowls. So I think I've got the top in him so far, so I'm hoping we can do the same this weekend.
John, does this season at all for the Seahawks so far remind you of last year's when they started out 5-4 and everyone, or a lot of people were saying, no, they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year? Does it have the same feel so far to the way it felt last year?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like you said, last year starting slow. We heard up here about the players-only meeting that they held and kind of got their mentality right and turned things around in the second half. And I think it feels the same this year. It's a slow start. Disappointment about that, but I think kind of reserved disappointment given that we saw it last year turning around in the second half, and I think pieces are starting to come together a little more, maybe starting to look a little stronger, and I think a lot of optimism for the second half. So yeah, it feels a lot like last year.
John, for us and the Cardinal fans, we always feel like the redheaded stepchild in this matchup. It's like the Seahawks have owned the NFC West. And it's a rivalry for Cardinal fans. We see it that way, and we've got to beat the Seahawks in order to kind of get our feet on the ground here and be an established team. Do the Seattle Seahawks fans see it that way? Is it a rivalry in Seattle with the Cardinals?
I would say my perspective is that this year it's starting to be that. Maybe the last second half of last year is starting to feel that way. It was the 49ers for sure the last 2 years with Harbaugh down there and 49ers being the previous kings of the NFC West. I think that it was definitely the 49ers, but I think since they've dropped off a little bit, I think it's starting to turn around, and with the Cardinals having the success they've had the last few seasons, I think it's starting to be more of a rivalry for sure.
But I mean, with Jim Tomsula and now Blaine Gabbert, you got to be worried.
Not quite the same feeling, I'll tell you that for sure.
I will say this, when the Seahawks came down here last year in the regular season to play, Glendale and all of Westgate became Seahawks Central.
Yeah,
it was like
right?
You couldn't even find hardly a Cardinals jersey out there. It was all Seattle Seahawks blue.
We know what's funny about that, though, Craig, is I remember going to a Seahawks-Cardinals game in the late 90s, and I could count on one hand the number of Seahawks fans that were out there. Granted, there weren't that many more Cardinals fans out there either. But
so you're saying a lot of bandwagoners?
People who have maybe come to appreciate the Seahawks a little more over the last few years, maybe. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Speaking of Seahawks fans, John, I hate to bring up a sore subject, but that last play of the Super Bowl last year, does it still haunt you?
It does. It does. And I'll tell you, I think stemming from that and then the first half of the season, Darrell Bevell, offensive coordinator and play caller, he's not really well loved up here in Seattle. I think we've seen some of that in the first half of the season. Some, arguably questionable play calls in different situations, and so stemming from that Super Bowl play in the first half of the season, he's not a well-loved man up here right now.
John, looking at the Cardinals, just the first half of the season, what, just as a Seahawks fan, what concerns you most about what they do on either side of the ball?
I would say right now, as I said, their defense is strong. They've got a great secondary, and that's obviously our passing game is not the best right now. But I also think on offense, Carson Palmer in the passing game there has been great. It's obviously we've got the Legion of Boom, and you guys talked about that they're one of the best defending wide receivers. What I've seen recently is an inability to cover tight ends. There've been some communication breakdowns and coverage breakdowns, and giving up a lot in the middle of the field to tight ends. And whether that's Cam missing the first few games and finally getting back on the same page, but I think they're a little bit exploitable there, and so that worries me with the strength of the Cardinals' passing game.
What's your take on Russell Wilson? I mean, he's got a couple weapons, but he's really just not a passing threat this year.
I think, like I said before, it's a lot about that offensive line. They've given up the most sacks in the NFL, I think over 30 at this point, and it could be a heck of a lot more if it wasn't for Russell Wilson's escapability. So I think he just has a limited amount of time. He's getting the ball out as quick as he can, and it's not always successful. I think you guys also talked about Jimmy Graham, and he's been a little quieter. I think probably some of that has to do with chemistry. I think they're starting to figure out a little more. He and Russell Wilson getting on the same page, and you also mentioned kind of getting the offense focused a little more on him. I think that would be helpful, and part of that frustration with Darrell Bevell. And it's just, it's hard for Russell to do much without much time back there.
What's interesting, too, despite Russell Wilson's off-field stuff, a divorce and dating some superstar now and all those things, and whether he can throw the ball or not, Seattle Seahawks fans love that guy, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. You kind of there's been a little more with the contract he got this offseason and kind of these arguable on-field issues and not quite the success the past couple of years. Got a few fans that have raised some, issue with him and, should he be dating Ciara and all this stuff. But no, he's overall a really well-liked guy. It's hard not to like him. I mean, he's a great guy, one of the best you'll find in the NFL, I think. And yeah, he's beloved around here and does so much for the community. He's a great guy.
Over under 20 texts sent between you and Craig on Sunday night.
Oh, let's see. Sunday night, I might go the over there, depending on how good the game is.
That's a good prediction.
I think we got to put some kind of wager on this, John, don't you think?
Sure, I'm up.
Maybe if the Cardinals pull off the win, you've got to wear a little Cardinals red on Monday?
You could do that. I could do that. You've got to wear some
Take a
Seahawks
picture.
blue.
Ooh, all right. And then we'll put it on the webcast next Monday?
You can do that.
Got it on the record.
It's on.
It's on
I can't
record.
wait to see it.
All right, we're on right now. It's Cardinals and Seahawks Sunday night, the nationally televised game on NBC, and the Fooey family is divided.
Yeah, we'll get to our predictions in a bit, but we got to get John's.
Yeah, there you go.
We got to take note of it.
So we're going to do our predictions, John, which we do every week. We got to get yours here before we let you go back to work.
All right, you got it.
What do you think? Who do you think is going to win this game?
I've got, I haven't put a lot of thought into this before right now, but I think I'm going to go Seahawks 17-14.
Wow, that's actually
Mine's pretty similar.
That's pretty solid.
I like where your head's at.
Is your boss looking over your shoulder yet, saying, "Are you going to get back to work?"
No, not at the moment.
Okay, good.
My boss is doing that to me right now.
Hey, John, thank you for taking the time, buddy. Appreciate it. Say hi to the family.
Will do. Thanks for having me on.
John.
All right, buddy.
Go Cards.
Go Cards. Thanks, John. There you got it. The house divided, the Fooey family. We got a Seahawks fan up there, diehard, and we got a Cardinals fan here. So it's not easy being in the NFC West.
No, it's not. I'll tell you that much. I will tell you this, guys. We haven't talked about really the Cards' playoff chances, but there was a Vegas Insider released this today. The Cards have the third best odds to win the Super Bowl at this point.
Behind New England and who?
Packers.
Say that again. Say that one more time.
The Cards have the third best odds to win the Super Bowl at this point. Right now, number one's Patriots, 11-5. Packers, 17-2. They just lost yesterday.
Yeah.
And the Cards are 9-1. I believe the Hawks are little bit down there at 15-1.
And Carolina not in the top
No.
10?
Yeah. No respect for Carolina.
Wow,
Right?
no respect.
Or Cincinnati, for that matter. Or
Cincy.
Denver, who's 7-1, even though they lost yesterday.
I think everybody's still looking at Cincinnati and go, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, but they lose in the first round.
Yeah.
So, right? So,
It's funny, though, that considering the toughness of the second half schedule, that the odds makers are giving the Cards that much.
Yeah.
They got some
that's
tape.
amazing.
And it tells you how big every game's big from here on out, but it tells you how big the Cardinals-Packers game's going to be. As of now, they're both tied for, I believe, the number 2 spot in the NFC in the first round bye. Although the Packers and Vikings are tied for first place right now. I don't know who would win that tiebreaker as of right now.
Right now the NFC stacks up: Carolina 8-0, Green Bay 6-2, Arizona 6-2, the Giants 5-4, Minnesota 6-2.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota only because Green Bay is up there in that second spot. But and then Atlanta 6-3. So your top 6 teams are bunched. I mean, it's close.
It's crazy how different the AFC playoff picture looks compared to the NFC. I mean, the Panthers are really the only ones that have run away with it. And the NFC East, you got the Giants and Eagles. The North, Packers and Vikings, both 6-2. You said. The NFC West. I mean, the Cards are out front, but
I'd say it's a 3-team race, but I think the Rams are at least
Hawks and Rams. If they could be good enough to make a run in the second half.